Okay, we're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech Asia today on a given Monday at noon. Well, almost noon. We got started a little late, but that's okay. We have enough time to delve into the subject. The subject is the Chinese are really coming. That's not rhetorical. That's a true statement. And we're going to show that through Russell Leu, who is a lawyer, a Honolulu lawyer, practicing with Shepherd Mullen, which is a firm out of the Midwest. You can tell us more, in Beijing, and he knows Beijing like nobody else I know. Welcome back to the show, Russell.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here on your show, and it's great to be back in the islands. And one correction, I'm a China-based lawyer who is Honolulu licensed. Hawaii licensed lawyer.
Okay, let's reel the tape back on that. China-based lawyer with a Honolulu license. So your primary association then is China. That's something.
That's where I live most of the time, Jay,
Yeah,
and that's where I practice most of the time.
Yeah.
So, but I'd love to be out here more often. But for now, I'm out there.
Okay, ni hao ma.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're very totally fluent in Mandarin by now, I hope.
Well, I'm more than taxi Chinese. Get around with no dictionary.
Taxi Chinese.
That's a true test.
So, I mean, at some point you have to get into legal Chinese, which is more difficult. Like in Japan, you can get along in the taxi with one level of fluency, but if you want to do business and read and write legal documents, you'd better have another level. So are you at that level in Mandarin?
Well, I don't think, unless you're a native-born Chinese, you're going to still have a hard time, because in China, everything's rapidly evolving. Everything's a work in progress. So new legal terms, concepts are introduced. And then how do you translate that from English to Chinese? That's not going to be easy. There may not be a Chinese way of doing it, so it's very difficult. So you
take the English phrase, right?
Well, we take the English phrase and then translate it into Chinese. And even for the native Chinese speaker who has studied law, has a law license, that's still sometimes a challenge.
When you talk about things moving fast in China, Russell, I don't think people who have not been to China fully appreciate. I'd like to just recall my own experience when I went to China for the first time, 2004. It was disruptive. It was life-changing for me to get out of the plane, see that huge, magnificent airport was in Shanghai, and then to drive into the city and see all the people working on the cranes in the middle of the night, and to see all the action. It was like a city that never slept. It was a city where everyone was in constant motion. You could feel the pulse of it. You could feel the huge energy all around you. It wasn't just the people, it was the collective of the people. It was the collective of the city, completely energetic. And I'd never seen anything. I was raised in New York. I saw a lot of action in New York, but nothing like in China. And you got to have that experience to really appreciate the place. You got to translate that experience into everything that happens. It isn't just the street scene. It's the way business is done, the way law is done, everything so quickly. How can you keep up with that? You're an island boy. You grew up on the beach and under the palm trees in the trade winds blowing through your hair. And now look at you in Beijing, where nobody ever rests. How did you make that transition, Russell?
Well, I think, Jay, largely is because when you're there, you get inspired. You get inspired by people from all walks of life in China who are all trying to keep up with the changes in the economy, with the social changes, and you got to admire them. You got to admire them from thousands of years of culture, knowing that they all have to change. Otherwise, they're going to be left out of it. And it's not as though the government's helping. You have to do it yourself. So you're caught up with this change. You're caught with this development. And we fast forward because the time the cranes have gone, because that was prior to Olympics and during the Olympics and after Olympics. Right now, those cranes have moved into the second-tier cities in Chengdu and some with Kunming, these other cities where it's rapidly accelerating. Cities are being changed and transformed. Beijing today has been transformed and is continuing to grow in different ways. Everything's developed, and I'm amazed at how the roads are constantly in great shape. All over the city. The subway lines have increased tremendously. And where I live, now there's going to be a subway line that's going to come right next to my doorsteps in 2 years. So it's just tremendous changes. Things are being more convenient. Transportation is being improved, so the city moves faster, business moves faster, and with these changes, you're caught up with it, Jay. Even the Hawaii expats, we just had a party about 2 weeks ago. I set a party called Kanakapila 2014. Everybody showed up. We even had an expat who's teaching, a young girl, who's graduate from college, but decided to go west, go to China. She's teaching in Jinan, which is about an hour train ride away. And she came in, and it was great to see, all of this, different expats, and we compare how we survive, how we meet the challenges of living life in China. So we're all surviving, knock on wood.
Oh, but do you love it? In other words, if I take you, say on a given Saturday morning, I say Saturday because presumably that's not a work day, hopefully. How do you spend your weekend? What do you do for recreation? Where do you go? What do you do?
Well, I belong to a health club, like anybody else. I have a bicycle, can ride a bicycle, and I have a rowing machine in my home. So there are ways to do exercising. And one of the unique things that you find is that the people in Beijing love to walk. So there's huge parks. It's nice. People, you can walk in parks, and you can join the local people dancing. They were in Latin dancing, I guess, some kind of disco dancing, back to that.
In the park?
In the park, vintage disco music, and it's a fun thing. And you see old people, young people, and they just love parks, especially during the summer when it gets really warm. The Beijing people are always out in the streets, sitting down there playing card games, drinking a beer. Summertime, there's a lot of watermelon and peaches, which Beijing is known famously for. And people are just having a nice life, trying to cope with it. But amidst it all, Jay, they're working very hard, and you can see it Monday through Friday.
How about lawyers like your own self?
I think the lawyers are always busy, and depending who your clients are. One of my new clients needed a bid the next morning, a major project, a Chinese client. So you were up there late working on things like that. They want to see you tomorrow at a meeting, face to face. Do a conference call 9 in the morning, at 5 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we're going to meet with them face to face and on what we're doing. So things move quickly. They don't just sit there.
Yeah, God, that's exciting. So does it get you run down? I mean, what are the negatives of practicing law in a place that moves so fast?
Well, Jay, that's a good question. We all get run down, but we manage to find enough strength. And the worst thing I hate is on Saturday morning. It's like when I'm dealing with the U.S. side, they're telling me, let's have a telephone conference call on Friday, which is my Saturday morning. And they tell me they want it at 6 o'clock. And I say, that's where I draw my line. 6 o'clock is too early on a Saturday morning. I need to sleep. Let's do it at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, good for you. Got to stand up for your rights.
That's right.
Well, how about you go to the opera? Do you go to the theater, the symphony? Do you, what else is out there that would compare to, say, an American city or to Honolulu?
There's a lot of culture in Beijing, Jay. I have a friend who's an opera singer, and this is
it's a great tradition in the Chinese culture, opera.
And so friends went out to see our friends sing opera, Russian conductor in the China National, the huge eggshell place with entertainment. And it's amazing to see that they're singing opera. They're singing opera that you would think you would only see in Europe or in the U.S. So they're very gifted people. So there's opera, there's a symphony, all kinds of shows that come from out of town into Beijing. And there's also the Beijing Acrobatic Show, which is wonderful.
Well, we had a little bit of that on a left-hand twist last week because the Shen Yun Show was here. The Shen Yun Show is a show that it's got some ties with the Falun Gong. It's built out of New York with Chinese people who left China and couldn't go back. But it's the same thing that I saw when I was there years ago with the brilliant colors and the fantastic production values, mostly dance and skits. It was very interesting. So that we have a little of that, but it's by indirection. I wanted to cover with you today, you struck on a big client recently. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so this is a multinational client,
From the China side, yes, they're
It's a Chinese company that's multinational, and he's your client.
Yes.
That's fabulous.
This client, I can't remember the name, but
Of course.
it's the third or fourth largest in the world, company in the world.
And you still talk to me.
And I still talk to you, of course.
Thank you, Russell. We go back.
So it's a real challenge, Jay. It's a wonderful feeling that you know that you're in this foreign world, that this client would normally go to large Chinese law firm, that you're able to carry on the business. And I think we're going to see more of that, Jay. We're going to see real, this is a global world, and they're going to realize that as the big thing in China now is Chinese companies to go outbound. They've had this policy since 2001. It's called going outbound. But the problem with China is that the large companies, the state-owned enterprises, they don't have the human assets. For example, you need a great legal team who understands the traditions of common law. You're negotiating contracts. You're reviewing contracts in English that translate to Chinese. And you have to understand a lot of these things. So they're putting the pieces together. And some, like this company, they have legal teams and they speak English, lawyers. So we work with them on some of the projects.
So I guess what I'm interested professionally, I think, in this, but I think I'd be interested at any level. You, an American lawyer, speaks Mandarin, been there, 10 years now or so, with an American firm, okay, you managed to get a large Chinese company that's trying to go outbound pursuant to that policy. Now that's got to be a project. That probably took you a while, and I wonder if you could explain to us the process that you went through in order to establish the guanxi that ultimately led to, the trust relationship that would allow them to hire you.
There's only one word. There's only one word. The key to this. There's only one word. It's the relationship. You hear people talking about guanxi, and it's talked about very loosely. People talking relationship, but you don't know what it is until you really have to go through the process. You know that the relationship is deeper than just the relationship. It's the trust. It's being their best friend. It's being that they can look you in the eye. We can go out and have dinner, and we can laugh together. We can share stories together about our families. We can share stories where we come from. They know that they will be taken care of, and it's this trust that's very important. It's not the type of thing where, in the Western businesses, where you try to pitch for business. You go out there, you do your dog and pony show, and you give them your card. In the West, we're so great, look at the website, da-da-da. It's not like that. It goes deeper than that. It's not just that front. They have to know who you are. They really have to trust you. And largely it's because of culture, Jay. And the culture in China for thousands of years is like this. There's so many people that when they do business, they don't really know who they're doing business with. And so a lot of times in the Chinese world, they have to find out information. What hometown are you from? Are you from the north? Are you from the south? Who's your friend that introduced us to you? And it takes time. And everybody wants to make sure that when they get that relationship with you, the Chinese world, that whoever took care of the relationship is not going to have a relationship that fails, that he loses face in his company or firm. And so this trust is a deeper bond than Lucy's saying, you need to get guanxi. That's why it took over a year to get this relationship. And it took a lot of knowing the client, who they are, being on a social level as well as a business level.
Yeah, I remember the 80s, and all the lawyers in Honolulu were trying to get Japan clients, and there was this whole ritual about taking them out for sushi, and they took you out for sushi, spent a lot of money on sushi, the most expensive sushi you could ever imagine, and drank beer until they were, everybody at the table was ripped. So is the same thing, or is it different? Can you distinguish between that experience with the Japanese business, clients that we got here in Honolulu, and that made a lot of difference for the economy of the state at the time, and the Chinese clients you get as a lawyer in Beijing?
I think, Jay, there's some similarity about going out eating sushi, getting ripped, and so forth. But I think it's deeper than that. I think you got to understand the Chinese culture. I think you have to understand that for thousands of years, or for the last century or so, they've had a lot of presence with foreigners. Their experiences with foreigners dealing with business and political things has not been very fruitful. A lot of conflict, war, and so forth. So with that is built in, I think, a deeper sense of concern when they meet somebody, that they need to really know who you are. More so than the Japanese. I think the Japanese had a bit of relation. Admiral Perry, Japan, and they're a closed society because they're island, so they think a certain way. When you go to China, it's not an island; it's a continent. 53 different minorities. How do people trust each other? You have a culture of Kublai Khan conquering the Han people. You've got different cultures. You've got the Uyghurs now, and the conflict that goes on. So north and south.
That's in the southwest.
That's the south. Yes. So it's this that makes it an environment a little difficult to gain trust, and that's important.
Well, yeah, I wanted to get into that just a little, and that is, sometimes you find these cultural, call them mechanisms, like the whole Guanxi kabuki, if I may, the process. It may, to a Westerner, it may seem unnecessary. It may seem different. Maybe too much work. Who knows? To get close, but in the world of the Chinese culture, it sounds to me like there's a good reason to do that. This is not by accident. These culture points were learned a long time ago out of some really hard knocks, and everybody found that there was a really good reason to not do business unless you had a history of trust in Guanxi. And I mean, you have any thoughts about that?
Sure.
It seems to me that this is very deeply ingrained by virtue of a historical development.
Yes, historical development. We had the foreign governments in China for a long time. You remember what happened in the Boxer Rebellion. You go through the history of
spheres of influence.
And so the Chinese are, I believe, culturally sensitive that maybe the foreigners are trying to take something from us. And so when you've gone through that process, you're careful. It's the same way that the Russians are very sensitive to the Germans because of historical differences. And it's a similar type of distrust. Maybe it's what word is distrust. But you got to realize that the culture in China with so many people adds to that. And it goes like this. What's the difference between a child in China and a child in the U.S.? Well, in China, let me go to the U.S. In the U.S., your parents will tell you, be sure to come back home before 6 o'clock, before it gets dark. If you see a strange man on the playground, quickly run away, get away. Team up with your buddy children and come out together, leave that place. In China, nothing like that. Parents teach their children, watch out if you get cheated. Count your money carefully. Be careful that you get cheated. This is a false thing, it's a fake, it's a fraud. Because there's so many different people in China. It's a very different mentality. So it's a really different kind of mentality in terms of trust mechanisms.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll
So
add,
this is a mechanism.
It's a mechanism.
The Guanxi is a mechanism to screen out where people who are likely, have a higher probability of trying to cheat you.
Yes, and there's one other thing that I didn't fail to mention. That's important. It's developing Guanxi, that real deep sense trust. But the key also is going to be the person who introduces you, that third party, that middleman.
Because he's invested.
Because he's invested and he knows both sides. And he is trusted by both sides. So if there's a failure, a breakdown in some business, they will go to him and he will come back here and he will talk to the other side. And it's because nobody loses face.
Yeah.
And that's a real important mechanism. And I learned my lesson here, Jay, because, I think people here in the West really don't understand that mechanism. For example, people ask me for introduction to somebody. I give an introduction. But in China, if I give you my introduction, I expect to be part of this relationship because my China side is going to expect me to be part of the relationship. I hear the American side saying, Russell, okay, now you made the introduction, you stay out of it. We're going to do it. But the problem is this, is once there's a failure in the relationship, I lose my China relationship too. I'm heavily invested in that. I've actually had that experience here, Jay.
Both sides will be mad at you if it fails. So you're there to try to keep it together.
I've had it happen twice here, and I will never do it again because I'm very cautious because I've invested deeply in the relationships in China. And if I'm going to make the introduction, and if you're not going to play by those rules, I'm not going to give you that introduction because I lose my relationship. And that's how it works in China. Very important. And you know, it's important because if we're going to do something meaningful in Hawaii, we're going to get investors, we want tourism. We need these people who are connectors, who have relationships. That's what you need because they're the ones that are going to vouch for people here. That people from China will say, okay, we're going to go there. Because you know why? We trust Jay Fidell. He's lived in China, he speaks Chinese, and he knows us, he's got a stake in it. And I know him well enough as a friend. So that's important.
You need that as an infrastructure for Hawaii to really connect up with China.
You need that, and that's one of the things.
Connector people.
You need connectors, you know. Like Malcolm Gladwell's book on the Outliers. You need connectors, people who can connect and bring in relationships. But then on this side, you have to really understand that when that connector makes that relationship, you got to still keep that person in the loop.
Yeah.
Because it is so important.
Otherwise, otherwise you're damaging something.
It'll fail.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have a connection too. We're going to connect with a break and then we're going to connect back in again. This is ThinkTech Asia. I'm Jay Fidell. We're talking about the Chinese are really coming now with Russell Leu, with Shepherd Mullen, an American law firm in China, in Beijing, and he's had some great adventures lately, and we always love to explore them with him when he's here. We'll be right back after this break.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2.
Okay, we're back. We're live. This is ThinkTech Asia. I'm Jay Fidell. We're talking about the Chinese and the fact that they are really coming with Russell Leu of Shepherd Mullen, an American attorney practicing and well for quite some time in Beijing. So just to complete the subject we were talking about a minute ago, that is developing relationships with business clientele or prospective business clientele and making them your clients in your American or Chinese firm. Tell us about the close of that deal, you know, where the magic words were uttered. Where was it, in a restaurant or a bar?
No, you raised a really good question, Jay. And there's a formality to that when you kind of know, and that goes like this. When the director, which is considered the general counsel, Director Leu, says, I want you to come over to visit our offices. And
It's like coming to see my mother.
Yeah, come 4 o'clock.
And meet my family.
And you know at 4 o'clock, it means there's a dinner to go with that, to formalize a relationship.
Yeah.
And you know that you're in. That's the feeling you get, and you know. And so
you could blow it too, right?
You could blow it, but you know, I think that the important thing is that you know, we had another meeting on this day, but we had sense enough to reschedule that, move that back, because we had to go to this meeting. We had to have the right partners, and our chairman was in town. And
it wasn't you alone. It was a number of the lawyers in Shepherd Mullen.
Yes, because it's a face thing. You see, we're giving face to the general director of the legal counsel that our chairman is in town. He's taking off, and he's going to break from his meeting to come and pay a visit and have dinner. And the other partners.
Next time I want to be with you, I want to be there. I'll just carry your bags, okay? I want to see how this works.
And you know, because you're led down to this building.
Okay.
It's huge. State-owned enterprise, huge. Largest in China. Magnificent halls. Huge building with the atrium that goes all the way up. And you know you're there, and you got to turn in your passport, and and they give you an ID. You got to swipe at it to get to the
Serious
to
business.
the pearly
It's a
gates.
global
It's
company.
a global company.
Yeah.
Real serious business. And remember, the state-owned enterprises, these are state assets. These are government assets, you know. So you are in the lion's den, and you go in there, and you go to the legal department, and then you do a meeting. You sit down at a conference table, you know, with 10 people, and you have coffee and share stories together. What we do, what you do. Kind of a really it's a ceremony, but you know that you're inching towards something, and then you go to dinner, and you have a dinner in their own banquet room.
Inside their company.
Inside the company.
Yeah.
They have an area for just the everyday, you know, the everyday canteen, but this was a private room, circle table,
Yeah.
10 of us with
Yeah.
with Maltai,
Yeah.
with any drink you wanted in a special menu. That they,
The top.
and that you're
Rarefied
served-
air.
that you're served.
The center of the universe.
Except that I'm told it used to be better only because when Xi Jinping came in power, he said he didn't want to lavish banquets. So this is a really nice banquet, but then you get served, and nobody talks business. It's talking about family, talking about life, having drinks, and you have to know how to deal with it in the Chinese world, because during a certain point of the dinner, even though we're the guest, we have to get up, fill a glass of Maltai, and start going one by one, toasting the different.
Now, the dinner and the whole conversation is in Mandarin or English or both?
English.
English. How
English.
interesting. Okay.
And you know, the world has changed because the Chinese years ago started to implement English in their educational system. And it's amazing that the people that we deal with in China, they speak English. We didn't need a translator. Maybe we need a translator when we do that final legal documents in
Yes.
Chinese to get it right.
Yes.
But we can communicate.
Yes.
And you know, I say that's the difference where I think where the Chinese have a greater probability of succeeding, because everyone has learned English. When you go to other business, I know my friends work in Japan tell me that Japanese only. You won't get an inner circle unless you speak Japanese. So if you're an American and a Chinese speaks English, you can still converse.
Yeah.
And that's important. The
Fabulous.
language of business.
And thank you for sharing that. I'm really touched by the quality of the experience. I'm sure it's something you will never forget. Yeah. But moving on to the topic of our title of our show, the Chinese are really coming. You ask different people in this community, are they coming? Are they here? Are they buying stuff? Are they not buying? What are they doing? And you get mixed answers. What's your answer to that question?
Well, let me give you a little introduction first how it's things. The Chinese have gone all around the world. I've even gone in tour groups with the Chinese into Europe and seen how they're voracious spenders. They buy everything. There's two kinds of things that you got to realize. One is going to be the business investment into the U.S. Hawaii's economy is a tourism industry. So in terms of the business investments, the Chinese have slowly been moving in to different parts of the U.S. They've gone to South America. They've gone to Africa. They've got natural resources out of Africa. They've gone to Europe. And now it's gone to a point where the Chinese are so familiar with even Europe. They have these special tours for high wealth who want to get a green card. Could be in Spain or Portugal, but the way the EU works is they can do business everywhere. Or whatever.
It's kind of EB5 kind of
It's
thing.
kind of EB5. So they've got these fantastic parties and tours that they will go to Europe.
Just for investment.
Just for investment. And so we have the EB5 in the U.S. Okay, but like it all, the Chinese businesses by and far have not yet fully migrated or come over to the U.S. But it's going to change. There's word in the air that companies are looking at. For one of my projects, I can't say much, it's confidential, but it's doing something in the U.S., significant project.
In Hawaii?
Not in Hawaii. This is somewhere in the U.S.
Okay, well that has to be the last few minutes of our show here.
Okay.
Why not in Hawaii, and what can Hawaii do to groom itself for these tours and the possibility of investment, and in what areas? We run the risk of getting backwater because we let all this fly overhead.
Sure, and it goes like this, and I'll give you a quick thing in a nutshell. Tourism is the big thing here. We've got Hawaiian Airlines flights that are going now between Beijing and Hawaii.
Have you flown?
I have not flown yet, 3 times a week. Air China is also flying it. China Eastern is flying out of Shanghai. So we've got a lot of air flights. So the question is, are the Chinese coming? And I understand from the Hawaiian Airlines that they are coming. They are on the flights. I understand that that there are good things to come, but there was an article that was written about an interview done with, I guess, President Dunkerley out of Hawaiian Airlines, saying that Hawaii's not ready. In a sense, it's true. It's not ready yet for it. And I don't think you can blame anybody here. It goes like this. There are no connectors, no relationship.
You used that word before.
Yes. There's no relationships between Hawaii and China and previously. And that's important because that's what's going to kickstart it. That's a relationship that's going to bring in the investment here. There is, I believe, a company here heavily invested by Chinese who made his wealth in China into golf courses, and they're starting up to link with China. We need more of that. We need more connections, okay? It's really no fault of the tourism authority or government, but we need to be open now. Now's the time to gather forces and say, we need to open this market up. We need to find out what the problems are. First of all, we need to get investors here who would build hotel rooms. In China, the hotel rooms are spectacular. They're larger. And right now, I understand that all the hotel rooms are filled without the Chinese. So that's a big thing.
Yeah.
The Chinese there's no restaurants that they would love. That's the biggest complaint I have. I travel with Chinese business people here who travel all over U.S. And the worst thing is there's no restaurants. Okay, that's going to be important. For this place as a destination, there has to be restaurants. Because
you must be defining restaurant in a different way than just a small local restaurant.
Not small local restaurant.
What we'll be talking about here.
We need a restaurant as Sichuan food. We need to have hot food. We need to have more Chinese food. They have to feel this place is Chinese friendlier. But again,
we're talking about splendid restaurants.
We said good restaurants.
First cabin restaurants.
Yes, good restaurants. And we don't have it here. There's only one restaurant that I will take the Chinese here, and I know that I'll pass the test. There's only one.
That's scary.
And it is something, no fault of our own, because remember, the market drives the economy, but we need to look in creative ways to make that, to bring that investors here. Critical. If we don't, I'll tell you, I give it 1 year. If we don't, the Chinese will simply not come. They'll bypass us.
Well, it's already happening that way.
I don't know, but that's what I'm afraid. It's a selfish thing. I want them to come here. I want them to have a fun time. They're not a beach type of person. They go shopping. They do a lot of lively things. If you go to Beijing, notice the lights all over the city. Mm-hmm. They're very lively people when they go out.
Night people.
Night people.
So one thing though is when we come to invest, you refer to the tourism industry and maybe food and beverage, restaurants, whatever. But what about other things? Can't we offer them anything else?
Well,
is there anything else they have expressed interest about in terms of investment in Hawaii?
Well, I think the other important piece that I think is very important is, and I don't know much about it, but I've entertained a lot of times groups coming from the U.S. coming to China, the universities that have applied research. There's a lot of technology. I'm not sure if UH is an applied research type of university, but there are programs where you can license that off. And they want technology. Then you get more Chinese students coming here. When more Chinese students coming here, I think it gives a great knowledge base for our local kids to learn and to be global. Jay, 30 years ago when I was in college, my friend and I were looking in the classroom and we said, there are too many Chinese students here. Then it was Hong Kong and Taiwanese. Let's get out of this because the curve's going to be really nasty. We're going to get a flunky grade. So we went to the class, all Americans.
You're right about that.
Today I would tell the kids, you get in that class, you get into study groups.
Yeah.
I don't care what it takes.
Yeah, really.
That's the opposite.
Get friendly.
But you get friendly. But you need to do that. The kids need to get competitive. Also, language. We don't have kids here learning Mandarin. I'm talking to people on a flight back in Virginia. Schools now are offering Mandarin. They're starting to gear up for it. We need Virginia. We need to do that. I belong to a program where I'm responsible for Hawaii to bring in kids who have a tough background, disadvantaged background, and find sponsors to send them to China, Beijing for a month to learn Mandarin and come back, be placed in a school that has Mandarin. But the problem is, I don't believe that there are many Mandarin-speaking schools here. It's all Japanese focused. You need to shift off that. You need to give that a chance to build because these are the service workers that are going to work in whatever, financial, tourist industry in Hawaii that need to have that basic language knowledge. And that's very critical. Language is important.
What about areas of production? I mean, recently we had a program about agriculture and specifically pointing to high-tech agriculture, which actually is aquaponics and hydroponics and aeroponics. And people came from the mainland, including Asia people came from the mainland, not Chinese that I know. And they were interested in investing in Hawaii to see what those possibilities were. Those are hot areas, at least for some people. And so putting aside tourism and putting aside restaurants and all that, what about investing in Hawaii resources, in agriculture, and for that matter, in energy, and making a contribution, but also making a profit in that way?
Well, I think the question for the Chinese, if they're going to invest in, are they going to make a profit? And it's going to be difficult because we may have the technology, okay, to do the agriculture. Will they be able to take that technology back to China and use it? That's important, first question. Second question, if they have the technology here, how big is the market? We don't have very big markets. But if we gear this restaurant industry and the tourism to focus on a really high quality thing, that might be a real big boost for the economy. Because the Chinese are very concerned about food safety, food quality, very much. The people of money are concerned, definitely concerned. And to me, if you made Hawaii as a tourism place, where the food's all certified to be all high grade, you're different. Why would you go to Hawaii instead of Maldives? Their favorite destination is Maldives, because everything's certified. You have Chinese restaurants.
An island destination.
It's an island destination that's fully catered to Chinese. All major carriers fly daily to Maldives, and the Chinese open an embassy there in Maldives. That's how much business goes there.
Little island in the west of India.
Little mini islands,
Many islands, okay, right.
But a lot of money's being done. But again, this is important. I think we're better than the Maldives, but we need to understand, have those relationships with China, understand what they need. What they need is they're going to come to a place where the food is certified to be organic and so forth.
Last question then, Russell, because we're running out of time. Last question is this. Suppose I listen to this discussion, as you know, I always love my discussions with you, and I decide that I want to be a connector person. I want to be part of this process. I want to save Hawaii by bringing Chinese investment here and having a state-to-state kind of Guanxi with China special relationship, which we don't have now. To say that Sun Yat-sen came here for a while is not enough.
That's right.
Period. We've been living on that much too long. We got to actually get current on it. So, but how do I establish myself, or how do I establish a group, for example, if I had the power to do that, of connectors who would connect Hawaii business, Hawaii resource, Hawaii investment opportunities with Chinese who are looking to come here, looking to be part of the scene here in Hawaii?
Well, Jay, that's a good point. I think we just need more people from China who are at a decision-making authority to come to China. You have to see it to believe it. If you're a decision maker here and you don't believe it, you've never seen it, you will never know. You will never know. That's the first step.
Yes.
The second step, find your emissaries who are out there. That's why we do the expat parties to see the Hawaii people. What are you doing? What are you doing? Connect back. Somebody knows somebody, very important. It's all word of mouth, social media, so forth. I mean, it's amazing when I see what's happening in China. I'm on the subway. I see in the subway cars, they've got promotional videos in Hawaii, the beautiful sand and so forth. I see it on their planes, but we need more connectors. We need people who can bring these guys from there to here. And we need the decision people involved. That's important. Government and business. And I think that's important because without that, you're not going to move. And we need to do it quickly. We can't wait on it. It's important. I realize this is an election year for some officials, and that's the way it is going to be, but we need to do more than that. It's so critical. We need to show what our university is all about, what achievements we have, what applied research we can sell. Take it out with that group. Take it with business people. Go there and start meeting people. It's the hard way. It's not easy, but that's the only way you're going to do it.
The good news is, correct me if I'm wrong, the good news is that we don't have to speak Mandarin to achieve these things.
That's right. And all the Chinese, the key people will speak English, and I think you'll find that a wonderful thing because the Chinese are smart. Years ago, they knew that's the language of business. So.
No, the exchange lawyer who is presently in the system with Cade Schutte, and the Hawaii, Shanghai, Honolulu, Shanghai exchange lawyer program here. Her name is Stephanie Wu. She's from a firm, the Wei law firm in Shanghai. Speaks perfect English.
They all do.
This was the first time in the country a few weeks ago, because she had had an LLM in Britain before. Her English is impeccable. And you know, what's happening here is that the Chinese are, as you said, voracious but ambitious, going everywhere, looking for every possibility, and it's ubiquitous in China. So many people are thinking that way. We have to think the same way.
Let me give a real quick steal. As you know, I'm associate dean at a law school in Beijing, where we produced about 400 ambassadors displaced. We have major relations with I was on a trip, I met the law school officials at Washington University in St. Louis, some of these schools, and there are more and more Chinese going to go to the U.S., not to the LLM, but to JD, speak perfect English. We're creating programs for that. These are the backbone of the next future of China lawyers, who will be U.S. lawyers and Chinese lawyers, speak perfect English, and who will work on the Chinese multinational companies coming out of China, who someday these companies will become the next IBM, Coca-Colas. The world is shifting, but I'm afraid that we need to, as a people here, our kids need to go out, embrace, learn the language, and you need to be, that paradigm is shifting, and if you don't move with that paradigm, you know, it's going to be gone someday. There's a decline in U.S. law schools, a 40% decline in enrollment, which means where the lawyers going to be. They're going to be Chinese, and they're going to come from China.
Stephanie's law firm is in Atlanta, Georgia. They have an office there. They contemplate other offices. Amazing. And they're, you know, doing work for American clientele. Oh my goodness.
Here's the point is I know it takes a risk, but Hawaii lawyers, you got to go there. You got to go to China. You got to walk the land. You got to engage. Don't expect the Chinese to come and drop at your footsteps. It's one step great to get the Chinese lawyer here, but you got to go do it, because it's very different from being in China.
Hear that? He's right.
Very different, Jay.
He's been saying it for years, but it's like coming true, just as you said it, Russell. That's Russell Leu from Shepherd Mullins, in an American law firm in Beijing. He's been practicing there for 10 plus years. We're talking about the Chinese are coming here, and they are, if we want them, they will. Here on ThinkTech Asia. I'm Jay Fidell. I have really enjoyed this conversation, as I always do. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Jay.
谢谢，再见。
再见，北京见。